Friends from the Road.
You are now listening to the Friends from the Road podcast.
Gaining new friends along the journey. Sharing stories that inspire, encourage, and motivate.
Friends from the Road podcast.
Now here's your host, Daniel Hurd.
Hey everyone, so I'm here in Portland, Oregon. Stay number 46 for me. I've been here for a couple days now, and it's been a really amazing time. I've been staying with a Warm Showers host, and I would like to introduce them. It's Terry and Mari Rudd. What's amazing is I reached out to several Warm Showers hosts in the city and got responses from two of them. And Mari was one of them, and she immediately, because of my headline saying I was riding the lower 48 for suicide awareness, was like, I wonder if this was the same Dan that I met a year ago. So she asked if it was, and she told me she was riding the southern tier from San Diego to St. Augustine with her son. Now, as soon as she said that to me, I knew right away that it had to be her, because I met only one mother-son cycling group in my entire journey. Found a picture that I did take with them and sent it to her, and now we are here outside in their beautiful backyard after doing some maintenance today and cleaning it up and making it look beautiful. It's a beautiful day. Since I've been back on the road, it's been cloudy. It's been kind of cooler than the rest of the country, but it's been amazing. And today it's blue skies. It's beautiful. We got some stuff done. We also are joined by Shadow, another cyclist, hiker, traveler, just like enthusiast of adventure, it sounds like, from what I know about him. But he is also joining us in the conversation today, here and there. But the focus is definitely Mari and Terry. So guys, all three of you, welcome to the show.
Is there a camera running?
Nope. So yeah, first things first, I definitely want to talk about how we connected. Obviously we did Warm Showers this time, but ironically it was in such a big world of 7 billion people, and to reach out to only 3 people in Portland and happen to connect with you, Mari, is pretty amazing in itself. What was your first thoughts on that?
It is amazing. So the email that came through from Dan indicated suicide awareness and had his name, Dan Hurd. Our 32-year-old son and I, Erik, had been cycling a year ago, and we met a fellow who went by the name of Lieutenant Dan, who was cycling for suicide awareness. Stopped and talked for about 15 minutes, heard about Dan's mission, swapped stories about life on the road on the bikes, donated some money for Dan's suicide awareness cause, and then we all went on our way until a couple days ago an email shows up that says suicide awareness, Dan Hurd, and it's like, I wonder if this is the same guy.
And then he sent you a photo.
Yeah. Yep.
Of you and Erik and himself, a selfie.
Pretty amazing, and we've had just a wonderful last 48 hours together. Ended up taking a car ride to scout some possible routes for Dan when he leaves Portland. Did some sightseeing. Dan's timing at our house coincided with a work party that was taking place today, and Dan graciously hauled yard debris out to the big dumpster in front. And
yeah, well, it's convenient because, one, it's a nice day, but we're out here having this conversation while we have dinner. Can you tell the listeners what we're having?
So we are eating a Swiss dinner that is called raclette, R-A-C-L-E-T-T-E, which is a type of cheese. Raclette is a traditional Swiss meal that is melted raclette cheese that just drips over little potatoes and onions and pickles and our family has a connection with Switzerland because Erik and I frequently will teach English at English language camps in Switzerland, and a friend gave us this raclette grill in honor of our Swiss camps, and so we are eating a Swiss cheese dinner tonight.
And it's delicious, I gotta say, primarily because two of my favorite foods are on the dish, potatoes and cheese.
You can't go wrong with melted cheese over potatoes.
No, you really can't.
It's worth a trip to Switzerland
To get the real
to
stuff.
have the meal.
Now this is the fake version. This is a little grill that you plug in, and it heats up the cheese that's on some metal, we call them shovels. But the real thing is like an 80-pound wheel of raclette cheese that is impaled on a post, and a heat source is put next to it, and then somebody will scrape the melted cheese off of this giant wheel of cheese and drip it onto your potatoes, onions, and pickles. So this is the cheating version, but it's pretty good all by itself.
It does. Now, so I'm sure the listeners are wondering why we're having a conversation today. And it's obviously it's the fact that we're having a connection where you guys are friends from the road now. And Mari, you already were, so it's kind of interesting. But the big thing that I really was interested in sharing is your guys' first adventure, which was your first cross-country trip, from back in 2012, which you actually ended up writing a book about, called Peddler's Push, correct?
Pedal pushers,
Pedal
coast to coast.
Pedal Pusher, Coast to Coast.
And there's a subtitle.
A cross-country bike tour fueled by kindness.
Fueled by kindness. You know, I can understand the kindness, especially being on the road for as long as I have. I don't think I would have made it as far as I have without the kindness of strangers. But yeah, I really would like to know more about like how that trip went. I know some details that nobody else knows yet. So, what is it that? How did that all come about? How did you guys decide to do a cross-country trip? And I know it talks about it in your book, so we won't go into too many details so people can go read it. But what sparked the idea to go cross-country?
I had done my first bicycle tour when I graduated from high school, and it was only a 2-week tour up in the San Juan Islands, which are in the Puget Sound off of in the state of Washington. Had a good time 4 years later when I graduated from college. A friend and I went, and we went for a 3-week trip up in the area, and I decided I wanted to do a cross-country bike trip. And then I needed to wait 32 years before that happened because real life didn't allow for taking 3 months off to go bicycle touring.
Oh, we did some shakedowns. From here, we went to Yellowstone National Park and did part of the route.
Now,
But I couldn't. I didn't get 3 months off until I retired.
well, hey, but you guys did it even at retirement. A lot of people at your guys' age are saying that they're too old to do that kind of stuff. So, any advice to the older cyclists that are questioning to do that?
My advice to anybody is get on a bicycle and start pedaling. And whether you bike 5 miles or 30 or 100, whether you bike just for a day, whether you decide that you want to not come home for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, there's so many ways to adventure on a bicycle, from camping to staying in a motel to staying with WARMSHOWERS people. You can eat your food out of a grocery store. You can cook your own food. You can eat food from a restaurant. So you can tailor make your adventure to fit
Your desires.
Fit your desire.
Now, I'd like to mention just a couple things. So, for someone just starting out, well, what do I do? There's all these books about how to cycle tour, but where you learn is by doing it, and you do the wrong stuff, you bring the wrong stuff, and anyway, it's often good to go with another person. Maybe they've done it before, but you get out there, you find out what works, what you want to bring, and what you don't want to bring.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But the biggest thing is you got to go out and do it, and you figure it out as you go.
You just start.
Yeah.
Just start and go from there.
Now, when you guys started your journey, I know you guys had some hiccups halfway through. Terry, you want to talk about that at all?
Well, yeah, when I got to Montana, I was diagnosed with a hernia, so that they said, well, you can keep cycling, but when I came up to hills and in the wind, it wasn't too good. And then I was really, we've been doing this now, bike touring for 40 years. But I was really getting tired. I couldn't understand why I'm so tired. And when I came back, then I ended up figuring out that I had heart issues that were hereditary, so I needed a triple bypass. So
Wow.
So when I did that trip, things weren't so good.
But you had an adventure in
And you did
Minnesota.
still.
What happened in Minnesota?
Oh yeah, Minnesota.
You had something that was relatable to me.
Sure. So we were about 5 miles away from where our son was working at a Norwegian camp, and we timed our journey there from the campground that was a few miles away, so we'd get there in time for All Song, where everyone joins in with these Norwegian songs. Mm-hmm. But the only catch is that one section of the road was like the worst that we had came across, and a car hit me and initially didn't stop, and actually he clipped my saddlebag went.
He initially
off.
didn't stop?
Yeah, he didn't stop, and then I went down, I put an arm down, and well, that busted a wrist, but eventually the guy did stop, and it turned out he was a flake. We exchanged information, but the insurance company said, no, we can't find the guy. But anyway, I ended up cycling with one arm to the camp, Norwegian camp, about 5 miles away. And then I eventually got it checked out by a doctor. Well, you got a fractured wrist, so end up bike ride. But Maury really wanted to get across the country, so we decided that what we would do is we would rent a car, drive the rest of the way to kind of check out the route, and then just follow up here. Came back to Portland, and so I had like 100 days. So, I got the hernia operation, I got the heart operation, and then we're going to go back. But the only catch is
You didn't have a heart operation.
Not at that time.
well, I didn't have a heart operation.
That
but-
was afterwards. You had your hernia operation
okay.
and your arm
And your
healed.
arm.
That's right. But anyway, we do this Oktoberfest dancing, so we couldn't go back until October. Our plan was to go back to Minnesota, where we started, where I got hit on the bike, and continue the trip. But it was kind of dicey on the weather, and the day we started in October, it was snowing.
So we were aware that the second half of our trip could get shut down at any time due to a heavy snowstorm that would just
Shut everything
keep
down.
the roads shut and pack us going. But it turned out that every time it snowed, and it snowed multiple times, but every time it snowed, the forecast was for the snow to be brief and for the weather to warm up, and so we were never sidelined on the second half of our trip, which was a wonderful, lucky thing.
Now,
I'm
one
sure.
other thing about the second half of the trip, I had.
Well, hey, actually, before we get to the second half, more that we've already gotten into, let's take a quick break and we'll get back to talking more about the second half after this.
Okay.
Hey folks, I want to talk about the helmet that saved my life after a major accident. Burn Helmets is a helmet that I have used for years and will continue to use Burn to protect my head. Burn focuses on designing stylish, innovative, and purpose-driven helmets that appeal to riders looking for something a little out of the ordinary. Being the original all-season helmet brand, Burn is a team that's passionate about being active and having fun while being safe. At Burn, they embrace all aspects of the activities that we love, and they strive to make high-quality products that speak to kids, commuters, casual riders, even dedicated athletes. Whether you ride for transportation, exercise, or just a great way to get outdoors, they have your head covered. Check out burnhelmets.com and see the great deals happening in the Burn Barn. Burn Helmets. Stay out there. All right. Hey, so right before we took the break, Terry, you were about to bring something up about your second half of your trip.
Well, just one thing. The doctors, since I had busted a wrist and I'm recovering, they said, well, I don't want you to spend weeks over the handlebars. And so I came up with the idea, a recumbent bike where I'm kind of sitting in a lawn chair.
Have you ever rode recumbents before that?
No, and I had about a week training in town. So I bought a used one, and what I've heard, and it was kind of tricky starting out because you kind of want to tip over, but it takes about 1,000 miles before your legs kind of get used to the recumbent, and so I about 1,000 miles right around the end of the trip, it started clicking in. So anyway, that was the dynamic. I'm riding this bike that kind of looks like a chopper. We're going through some of these towns, and people are saying, hey, yeah, where'd you get that chopper?
Nice. Yeah, I bet that was a pretty challenging curve to switch over. I haven't ridden one before. Now, was yours a two-wheel recumbent or a three-wheel?
It was two-wheel.
Oh, so I bet that thing was very interesting to figure out. How was it with dealing with the wind at first when you first got on?
Well, for the wind, it's good because you're lower. Okay, so that was a good advantage, but it was just kind of getting used to it because, it would want to tip you over, and in particular if you're going slow. And anyway, it was challenging for me, and also considering that I had this heart issue I didn't know about. So it wasn't real easy to ride.
I'm sure. And then you also were still you had that surgery for the hernia, so I'm sure all these compiling things weren't good, but you did the best. You finished.
It takes quite a bit to stop a rut. We just keep going.
Yeah, it sounds like it from what I've known about you guys so far, especially after all that you've experienced since then. But before we get to any of that, I definitely want. So you guys planned on going originally from Portland to Portland, right?
Right.
Where did you end up finishing?
So by the time we started in October and had to do the second part late in the year, Portland, Maine had shut down for the winter and wasn't available for us to bicycle to. So we then planned to finish our trip on the beaches of New Jersey with a friend of our son, who is also a friend of ours. And that plan was in effect until Hurricane Sandy came through and wiped out the beaches of New Jersey. And that was just a couple weeks before we finished our trip. So we needed to recalibrate where we were going to end the trip. We didn't go to New Jersey. We weren't really sure where we were going to go. We decided, we'll go to the Boston area, and we were bicycling towards the Boston area, decided we'd go to Cape Cod, and then one day when we were getting close to the Atlantic Ocean, Terry stopped in a bike store. A guy was talking to him about how we should stop at Plymouth Rock and have some ice cream, and that it was a great place to stop. And so we got back on our bikes, and I thought, Plymouth Rock, that was where the Pilgrims landed. If it was good enough for the Pilgrims, it's good enough for us.
Yeah.
So 2 hours later, we ended our bike trip at Plymouth Rock.
It came all of a sudden. And right in some of the freeways near there, you're on a road, then it turns into a freeway, and people were calling the cops, and I got pulled over, I think, twice. And finally, the last guy said, "You got to get off now."
We didn't know it was illegal.
Yeah, unfortunately, the East Coast, anything east of the Mississippi is very strict on bicycles on highways.
Now, Mari, didn't we go up into Canada, Niagara Falls? I don't know if you want to mention that.
We did.
You guys did?
Yeah. So I've got a cousin who lives in southern Ontario, Canada. So when we were in Michigan, we went to Canada, and actually we were at my cousin's when Hurricane Sandy hit landfall on the east, and we ended up staying extra long at my cousin's. That particular area had 3 storms that converged up where they were. So there were deaths and power outages and a lot of storm-related trouble. And when we left my cousin's in Ontario, after awnings had been blown off her house, we went to Niagara Falls, which was a fabulous experience to get to on a bicycle.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it when I went and saw it. Unfortunately, I only went on the American side. I'm not allowed in Canada still. From young adult ages for being irresponsible with alcohol. So,
well, if they ever let you over there, get to the Canadian side, because it's a stupendous view from the Canadian side.
I'm hoping within the next 2 years I will be allowed back. So we'll see how it all goes in time. But, as you guys finished randomly in Plymouth, Massachusetts, you guys went back home, you guys started doing things, but you started writing a book. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, so I like to write. I spend a lot of my time at camps and get to work at international camps. Most of them are English language camps. So I write detailed emails to friends and family about the adventures internationally and the adventures at camp. So I knew that when we started our cross-country trip, I knew that I wanted to write about it, and I knew that I wanted to write a book. So I wrote very extensive emails I wrote weekly emails to friends and family, and then I used all of those emails to be the basis of what ended up becoming my book.
All right. And that's a lot. Sorry. I'm trying to process it all. So, again, tell everybody what the book's called.
Pedal Pushers Coast to Coast. So PEDAL, like your bicycle pedal. Mm-hmm. Pedal Pushers Coast to Coast, a bicycle tour fueled by kindness. And the book is from our tire dip from the Pacific Ocean to the tire dip at Plymouth Rock, and stories in between. A huge discovery for me on that trip was the power of kindness from people, and we experienced kindness all along the way, from the very beginning to the very end.
And you can read you can read that about those things in the book.
Yeah, as everybody should. I'm very fortunate and very excited that you gifted me a book that I will get the opportunity to read the hard copy when I finish my journey. But I'm also going to download the digital version so I can read it while I'm on the road.
Yeah.
So for anybody out there that wants to get these, how can they find your book?
So the book's available through Amazon, also through Author House, which is the publisher for it. It is available digitally through Amazon, also through Smashwords. And so either hard copy or digital. If you order it through Smashwords, you get colored photos. So If you're looking for a digital copy, I recommend Smashwords just because you get colored photos.
Good to know. You know, I want to move on from the 2012 trip because you've had a lot of trips, Mari, since then. You've gone across the country now 4 times?
Right.
And a lot of other trips in between. Want to just give the listeners an idea of some of your trips that you've done, route-wise, briefly, and then also some of the ones you've done overseas.
Yeah. So the first trip was a northern route. That was the one that we've been talking about, starting off at Astoria, Oregon, and ending in Plymouth, Massachusetts. The other 3 cross-country trips have been basically the southern tier with variations to go visit friends and sightsee. Terry and I did the southern tier, and that was the first southern tier that we did. And then a few years later, I did a solo southern tier coming back from a nursing conference. Basically, the conference was in Orlando, and I came from the Atlantic Ocean to Orlando to the conference, and then biked to San Diego, turned the corner, and came up to Portland. And then a year ago, our son and I did from San Diego to St. Augustine. We started in February, mid-February, and then a month later, we were in Texas, middle of March, and the world was turning upside down with the pandemic.
Yeah. It's ironic that I met you both exactly 1 week before the pandemic shutdown started. So I was really curious to find out if you guys had finished. Obviously, it stopped my journey for a few months because of all the lockdowns. But it was a little bit different. I was going into more isolated areas, whereas you guys were leaving that isolated area. So I'm glad I took my break. And but yeah, how was it, how was it as a mother to be able to go and do a tour with your own son?
It was phenomenal. Our son Erik is a vibrant, fun, adventurous, flexible guy. So he's pretty good to do adventures with, and he and I have a lot of the same sense of humor, same willingness for boundaries to do things, and so we thought we'd be compatible. Turned out we were compatible. Erik had a window in his life where he had the time to be able to go do this. So we just snatched this window of opportunity, and we feel so lucky that we had this time together. It was a good adventure. We talk about how lucky we are to have been able to do it. And I would absolutely go do another big adventure with him if the opportunity was there.
Well, I hope it does arrive at some point. I know he is out there doing a lot of things right now. He's in Arizona, I think you said. So he's getting ready to do a lot of things. So hopefully he finds time at some point to do another one, either by himself or with you. That'd be awesome. And I reason why I bring that up about your guys' journey is, you guys are the only mother-son cycling group that I saw on my entire journey in 3+ years now. And not even just that, but like even a father-son or a father-daughter, whatever combination, you don't see that often. And
Right.
I think it's very inspiring to see that. And I think that I hope other people see that as inspiration and encouragement to go out there and enjoy things with their kids, or vice versa with their parents, and especially if they're compatible. I'm not going to go do it with my parents. We're not compatible in that sense, but if you guys have that compatibility, go enjoy some stuff like that.
It was it strengthened a bond that was already strong and good, and it just made it even better.
Well, hey, is there anything else, Mari, that you wanted to bring up before I talked about Shadow, the guy that's been sitting here quietly just keeping to himself up to this point?
I would like to just reiterate that I am such a proponent of bicycle adventures, and if you're starting off slow and small, that's absolutely a good way to start, and the idea is just to get on your bike and start.
Yeah, that's the hardest part for people is just getting started. And if I find it, once you get started and once you get past the first, I'll tell people it's the first 3 days of butt pain once you get started. Once you get past that, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But don't give up on that.
Right.
Once you get that butt pain,
Right.
keep going.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get it. It's guaranteed.
And the other thing I want to say is that I was inspired by Dan and his mission a year ago. I'm even more inspired from getting to spend these 2 days with you and learn more about your mission, more about your story, and I tip my helmet to you greatly for what you are doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I've had a great time as well. The adventures that we took yesterday to go to the gorge, to go to the Mount Hood, and just do this huge loop, it really gave me a lot of perspective of different things that I can see along my journey as I leave here in Portland. But yeah, the Shadow, you've been here quietly, just observing like a shadow does. But you are here currently as a Warm Showers guest, just like I am. And as I mentioned to everybody at the beginning, the little bit I know about you, you like adventure. You like to keep things going. And so on your current journey that you're on, what are you doing? Where are you going? How can people follow you?
So it's been kind of a mixed thing, but yeah, currently I'm kind of just doing an easy route because I've decided to just go down the Oregon coast and maybe part or all of California. And I may change what I'm doing after that, but yeah, it's been a bit all over the place this year of what I was planning on doing, but
you're getting adventures out there. You just, I remember you saying earlier that you just came back from the Olympic Peninsula, going around and doing all the trails up there, right?
Yeah. So far this year, I rode from South Lake Tahoe to Eugene, and then met up with a friend, and we basically, camped and biked and hiked around the Olympic Peninsula. But last year I did the loop of it. Yeah, I've done quite a few things. It's been like the last 4 years have pretty much been like doing stuff like this as like the default, sort of.
Very cool.
Yeah, I started with hiking the PCT, and then it's just been bigger and bigger bike tours. I don't know if this year will be as big as last year's, but it might be.
One day, one pedal at a time, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so is there anything that anything else that you want to share before we end this conversation for the day? Anything that you would like to tell the listeners directly? Anything like that?
Yeah, I guess if they want to follow somebody else's travels, they can find me on Instagram. Basically, the handle Bike Punky is where I can be found on anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and we'll definitely have that as well in the comments, as well as the information for the book and how to get in touch with anything that we've talked about in this conversation, in this episode today. I feel like we've had a pretty good conversation. You guys agree?
Yeah. I just want to add one thing. Shadow, you're talking about you do this as your default. And I made a comment to somebody while I was on a trip that I just finished. I just finished up a 7-week trip. And I made a comment to somebody that I didn't have anything better to do anyway with my time. And I wrote that flippantly, but it was really absolutely true. I had nothing better to do with my time than to be on a bike trip. And I feel that by having it as your default and having it be as really the best thing that I could be doing with my time, that sums up bike adventuring.
Yeah, it's that the happiness that it brings. So, well, hey, all three of you guys, thank you so much for having this conversation while we have dinner and It's been really an amazing time hanging out as a Warm Showers guest and having this conversation. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Copyright OPAT Movement 2021.